Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Shawn Pearson with me here today. Shawn is a social impact entrepreneur with decades of entrepreneurial and nonprofit leadership experience, helping people monetize their personal mission. She's the founder and CEO of a Phoenix nonprofit existing to break cycles of generational poverty, creating replicable business solutions that build wealth and answer community need. Mother of 6, grandmother of 15, and wife. Welcome to the show, Shawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of great stuff. Where would you like to start? How did you get going in your journey?
Well, I think it all started back in 1970 in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Nice.
I think the work that I do now really is a result of my personal journey out of poverty.
Okay.
I was raised by a single parent. My parents were divorced. Both of my parents, unfortunately, suffered from untreated mental illness. And during the 70s, it wasn't very popular to seek treatment. If there was a stigma, against medical treatment in particular, but certainly mental health treatment. And as a result of that, there were a lot of childhood traumas. I was fortunate to have a 5th grade teacher who took me by the hand, exposed me to some things that I probably never would have been within the educational system, and ended up in what was called a math science magnet at the time. And so I had an opportunity by 7th grade to be observing surgeries and different things like that in hospitals, and became a math science major and excelled, academically. Unfortunately, my mother passed when I was 18, so had to forego college, and life just kind of took a different direction. But God still had a plan for my life to propel me professionally through each position that I held. And so I went from a medical assistant to a research assistant to a program director and so on. And ultimately in my 30s became a founder of a nonprofit organization. And Zion Institute is really centered around breaking those cycles of generational poverty, but they were cycles that existed in my own life. And I knew that because I had an opportunity to come out just by someone walking me through a journey out of poverty, that I had a responsibility to go back and do the same for others. And so every work that the nonprofit does, and even the for-profit work that I do through my consulting, is all about transformation and transforming the lives of the people that I serve with and for, so that they can come out of poverty as well.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thank you. That's so. Let's talk a little bit more about the well and its focus. And it's largely, is it healthcare based?
Well, it includes healthcare. So
Okay.
within the umbrella of Zion Institute, we have healthcare, which includes medical and behavioral health services. We also have early childhood education through a child care preschool and a child care preschool model, where we teach residents how to launch child cares. And then also social entrepreneur training and incubation. And so the goal of the campus is to have access to issues or resources that address the issues that are social determinants of health. And
Sure.
so I think I like to say God uses my nosiness for good. So wherever there's an issue within the community, I try to find out what's going on, who's serving that need, or where the gaps might be. And then we use asset-based community development to figure out how we create solutions for those issues. So sometimes our organization might be leading or at least spearheading an initiative to get a work launched. And then we put other leadership in place that would continue it. And so to date, we've had about 60 businesses, a little over 60 businesses, 63 to be exact, that we've helped to launch that were focused on a solution related to the social determinants of health. But those 3 majors are the 3 that remain on our campus here in South Phoenix. So an integrated health clinic, early childhood education center, and then the social entrepreneur training.
Oh, that's all great stuff. And before you started saying launch, I was like, the well should be also known as a launch site, because that's a lot of great stuff coming out of there. So there is a big need for childcare.
Yes.
And how's that going lately?
Well, unfortunately, Arizona has become a child care desert. The pandemic did not help that. It really just magnified that issue. Within the zip codes that we serve, 8504041, 85339, which is South Phoenix, Central City South, Levine areas, we have an even greater disparity. And quality childcare was already an issue. So being able to find quality and affordable childcare was key and still is key for our community. So we have one site on our campus that has been here since 2018. We have two other community-based sites that we've helped to launch. One is school-based, so it's actually on an elementary school campus, and a third that is at a church location. And then as we come into this school year, we're looking at multiple sites at our school locations. We are serving the Roosevelt School District, which is a school district that has struggled for our families academically, but a lot of it is centered around those social determinants of health that our children and their families are facing. And so our goal is to put a one-stop shop, if you will, through the child care preschool that actually has wraparound services connected to the child care preschool. So if a child is a participant, their family has access to everything that Zion offers right there at their school location.
Okay, very, very nice, very nice. So, in addition to the well, you have you get bored apparently, and
it keeps me out of trouble, Tim. That the multiplicity of activities that happen in my world is really just my strong desire to see other people live a different life that is not one of bondage, just simply because of lack of access and lack of information. Social capital and relational capital were the key to the transformation in my life. And so everything that I learn about, I want to share it with everyone else, especially the entrepreneur. Traditionally, or by statistics, I should have been a mom on welfare perpetually, and so would my daughters have been. But because someone took me by the hand and showed me something different and exposed me to other resources and then gave me access as a young adult to be able to learn about those things, I became an entrepreneur, a founder of a nonprofit. All three of my biological children are entrepreneurs. And so we're able to spread the wealth literally and figuratively, with our knowledge, with our relationships, and with the capital that is earned and raised through the businesses that we launch.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. And wow, three entrepreneurs. That's got to be a pretty proud mama.
Well, it's a retirement plan. Nonprofits don't pay very well. Well, not if you do it the way that I do. My goal is to work our business out of a job. Eventually the community won't need Zion because we will have trained the residents to access everything that they need, and we'll find the next community that needs the support. But my children are part of the organization as well as doing their own business ventures. But yeah, it's nice to know that, in the event that I retire and there's no 401k, I've got three wonderful entrepreneurs and three more children that are doing very well, finished college and are doing some really great things. We have an oral surgeon, we have a midwife, we have one that is in the arts. So yeah, I'm well rounded between the 6 children and then the 15 grands we're grooming them to. We've got some future CEOs in the works as well.
Nice. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So besides the well, though, what you have a couple other projects as well as a podcast you just launched.
Do.
But what would you like to talk about first?
Well, the consulting work that I do is called Whisper Consulting, and it's actually WISPHER. So Whisper Consulting. The WISP is an acronym for Who is Shawn Pearson. And quite frankly, that was birthed out of many, many years ago. Unfortunately, through my own mental health crises, I attempted suicide at 26. Fortunately, I'm still here. God had something else for me to do. But through that began a journey of healing for me as a young woman who I knew I was called to do something much greater than what I felt I had the confidence to do or the skill set to do. And as I've learned over these last 30 years, my commitment was to be intentional about training other women, younger women in particular, who have a call in their life to do something greater than what they think they can handle, So Whisper is focused on those young ladies and being able to equip them in business or in ministry or just leadership in general. So we do coaching through various platforms. And then the Journey to Virtuous is the podcast that I do, where we're basically not just myself, but other entrepreneurs and other leaders are sharing their journeys as they've come into leadership or accepted the call in their life to do something greater than what they thought they could do. So it airs every week. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, but it's just a weekly sharing of the journey to doing what I've been called to do.
So you touched a little bit there on not just providing access, right, to resources to people, and also opportunity, but mindset, right?
Yes.
Equipping them with I feel like that's one of the biggest hurdles around right now. Can you speak a little bit to those challenges and how you overcame yours, and also how you're helping others?
Absolutely. I think the transformation of my mentality was the first thing that needed to happen. As a young woman with the circumstances that I was raised in, a lot of lack, a lot of shame associated with being in lack. And so my perception of myself was so little that I thought the world could do without me. Being on the other side of that, recognizing that we all have something to offer. And the key for me was actually discovering what that was. Having a network of people, even though it started as a small network, a network of people who were willing to rally around me and give me a hand up and not necessarily a hand out. So they were not perpetuating that stereotype that since I was a single mother that I needed to be dependent on our government systems or any other system, but rather, what are your gifts and talents? What do you have to offer to someone else? And how do we train and develop that within you? And so just making a commitment personally to replicate what was done for me has been the key. But it does start with being very transparent about what my journey has been. Out of poverty, to address the mental illness that was a generational issue, and some would say biological, because both of my parents suffered from mental illness, but being intentional about erasing that stigma and being proud to address mental illness as something that was no different than heart disease or diabetes or any other medical condition that I would treat with intentionality, because I want to live and I want to love and I want to laugh with my friends and family, and I have something to offer despite that, what others would view as a barrier. And so just sharing my story very transparently through a couple of books that I've authored, the personal journey of what it was like, as well as the professional journey of balancing or finding harmony between what is happening with me personally and medically and professionally, and how I can still be successful even with having a diagnosis in mental illness. And so just making that information available. I think all of us have a story to tell, and it can either be inspiring or discouraging to others, depending on how we tell it.
Sure, sure. Those you reminded me of a book by Daniel Amen, The End of Mental Illness. Have you?
Oh, I haven't read that.
2 thumbs up. I'd recommend that one. That's a good one. It's very, very, very good actionable sort of. It reframes a lot of that stuff in more of a positive, functional, medical, actionable way. Sharing your story obviously helps people a lot, right? That takes courage and being vulnerable on your side to help them. Does that help them break maybe any limiting beliefs?
I think it unlocks the door for conversation to even discover what those limiting beliefs are. I think some of us, we function in our existence, and I say to folks sometimes, we don't choose our color, but we do choose our character, because I know a lot of times my race has impacted access to certain things. But the other thing I say is that we should make life and not let life make us. And so our circumstances don't define who we can become. What they do is equip us with some tools to share what we came out of, so that someone else can be inspired by it. And so until people hear the conversation about what my journey has been, a lot of the people that I've encountered don't even assume that my upbringing was what it was, or they assume that I have a college degree because I've been able to excel professionally.
They assume
When
you're
quite
privileged,
frankly, they
right?
assume I'm privileged, that I live in a certain area, and that's not the case at all. I choose to live in a community that's much like where I was raised, which I'm surrounded by pockets of poverty because people just don't have access. And where there's a lack of access, there's often a lack of hope. So I get to be the poster child for, it is possible. And then sharing my story, they see me as a CEO or a founder or a business professional, and then they just make some assumptions. But when they hear my personal journey, then it's like, wow. So if it can happen for Shawn, it can happen for me too. And then I get the privilege of saying, let me show you how it can
Right.
happen, and walk with them through their journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's there's a lot there. There's so many variables and aspects to becoming who you are now, right? And overcoming a lot of hurdles. What's an underrated skill or habit that's been pivotal to your success?
Wow, an underrated one, being nosy. Or other folks might say being
It's called
curious.
curious. Yeah.
Yes, right. Being curious. My grandmother called it nosy. Being curious, and being courageous. My professional journey, as I said, I had a scholarship for college, but learning that my mother was terminally ill, I chose to stay at home and be with her in my senior year of high school. But I went to school for medical assisting a year or so after that. But just having access to doctors and being in an environment where I could learn more, asking the questions that I was curious about, and not limiting myself to what I would be able to do simply because of a title. Those titles put us in boxes. So if I had accepted that I'm just a medical assistant rather than a curious individual who happens to serve as a medical assistant, I never would have asked certain questions. I love to
Great point.
write, was just a natural gift, but because I love to write, I had a researcher who was okay with me helping them with writing grant proposals.
Oh
And
gosh.
that particular skill turned out in 1 year when I was 28 years old. I made more writing a grant with a community team than I had for my annual salary as a medical assistant. And that was an aha moment for me, that I could be a consultant and still keep a job that gave me benefits for my children. And so
Right.
it's that curiosity and being courageous to use the gifts and talents that I have, and then offer those up to other people. I would say that was definitely the most underrated, because I don't think I'd ever have been a founder of a nonprofit or consulting businesses or helped other businesses launched if I stayed in the box that society wanted to put me in.
Right. Right. And kudos for for being good at grant writing. That was always one I did not like doing.
Oh,
I
I
got
love
better at
writing.
it. It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah, right,
But it took so much time, and
right.
it was it, anyway. Yeah, right. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you.
You mentioned sort of the leadership aspects of what you do. Do you have a particular leadership style?
Oh gosh. I think I lead by example. I still like to be very hands-on, which I have a team that's trying to coach me into taking my hands off of some things.
Okay.
I'm both a visionary and a developer, but an implementer as well in terms of how I like to do work. But I love training up other leaders. And so first and foremost to me is integrity. So integrity and leadership matters, and I have to model that. I have to be vulnerable in my leadership to tell my team when I don't know. As I said, I don't have that degree. So I have physicians and nurse practitioners and licensed professional counselors and other individuals that are far more degreed and intelligent and in other spaces that work for my team or work with me as a team, but they're subordinates to me in terms of the hierarchy. But I have to be the kind of leader that will say, I don't know what this is. I trust your leadership in this capacity for where you've gone to school to be the professional. And then we work together, and not having the hierarchy that limits their access to me or my access to them, where we can learn from each other.
Right. Right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. And I've found that it seems like leadership styles vary depending on the situation. Good leaders know how to change hats, right?
Yes. Or know what you don't know so that you can ask someone to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that you reminded me just now of I forget the actor's name even, but he's like the head of the big corporation. And that was a big important thing, is this big boardroom or whatever. And he's like talking to an analyst at a big board meeting. He said, explain this to me like you would a small child or your favorite dog.
Right. Keep
Right.
it simple. Exactly.
Yeah. But being comfortable enough to be able to say that, right?
That's it,
And
being
still be in
comfortable
charge.
enough. And that's it. I mean, ultimately, I recognize that I'm responsible for it because it's a vision that I cast and set before the people and have them convinced that this is a great thing to do. And so I'm ultimately responsible for it. But each one of us on the team have a role to play to make it
Right.
excellent. And so my job in that is, in the spaces where I don't know how to do the job, to give the team the tools they need so that they can be excellent in their roles. So that's where the grant writing, especially for the nonprofit, that comes in real handy. I'm passionate about the vision. I understand the vision, understand where we want to go. I know how to, analyze the data to see how well we're doing or not doing, and I can tell the story. So I can find the money for them to be great in their roles.
Awesome. Love it. It's the servant leadership, right?
Yes, definitely.
Hat.
Definitely that. I think I'm just a servant at heart. And so whether I'm serving in the leadership capacity or I'm the cheerleader.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Serving.
That's all fascinating. Your business, your projects, all of it. This is the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast. I like to ask
Yes.
people personally and or professionally, how are you moving that forward? What are your goals, your legacy plans, right? Are you investing in all of these projects? Are you trying to grow even more? Are you trying to go ahead and
I
speak to
am.
any of that?
There's a planned growth for each of them. For the nonprofit in particular, we will own the campus that we are on so that it can be a resource for incubating these businesses that we're helping to launch. As you mentioned earlier, my goal is to break cycles of generational poverty and create community solutions in the process. And so all of those struggles that I had as a budding entrepreneur with not having my own funding and also not having the relationships or access to capital because I didn't have that right credit score for a bank to entertain me. It really took the asset-based community development and then social capital, the relationships that I had, getting individuals to join in with me to do the work. So the longer term vision for Zion is that we'll own this campus. It'll be an incubation space to launch all of those other businesses. For me personally, Whisper Consulting will grow and return to being something that is done on a national scale. As we started to grow the campus here in South Phoenix about 5 years ago, I stopped traveling, doing the consulting with other nonprofits and other churches in other states, showing them how to do what Zion was doing here. But I'll return to that and hopefully replicate some more whisperers, if you will, some other female entrepreneurs that are getting out there, get out, get known, get liked, to get paid is what I say to the ladies in their training. So being able to replicate some people that can employ other individuals as well as become entrepreneurs. And the podcast hopefully will be international. Technology has done great things for us. So the plan is to replicate, have some housing, be a part of the nonprofit's journey so that we can fill a gap for, as a solution for our community here in South Phoenix as well.
Right. And in terms of I guess coaching and all that, it's been a mind shift change for me, at least, where I know a lot of people thought that, well, if you're good, and you don't need a coach, right? And the reality is the more successful and the better you are, the more coaches you need.
The more coaches, exactly, exactly.
Which isn't intuitive per se, but I like to look at sports, right? When you look at like Tom Brady, right? There's the head coach, and then the quarterback coach, and then his physical coach and his mental coach. They just keep because a little investment in them gets you like a 10 or 100-fold more
absolutely results. Yeah, I am learning and growing. I've added a couple of coaches for myself. One of the first things that I had to be coached on was my mentality about money. Believe it or not, coming from poverty, I was more comfortable in that space. So even as the nonprofit became 7 figures, I was looking for ways to give away the money. I wasn't increasing my salary. I was adding more programs, and it was very flat. My team made almost as much as I did, but for me, that it wasn't a thought. So my team literally got me a coach to help me think about how I managed the money to not give away the store. They were like, keep 90, give away 10, not the other way around. So,
okay.
So just learning money management was a part of that mentality that I needed to change.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you if there was anything that you wish you would have known about building wealth or success early in your career. That just sort of checked that box.
That was it. Not being afraid of money, not being intimidated by money. That was the first thing I needed to learn, and that it was okay for me to have it. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Again, it feels like it's in that limiting belief realm. Again,
it absolutely was. It absolutely was. And so, I'm glad to say it was.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about a lot of great things you have coming up and on the horizon. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone aiming to achieve similar success?
I would encourage them, very much in line with what we've been talking about. Find a coach that is in the area of interest that you have. Ask every question that you need to have answered to
be nosy.
Be nosy. Exactly. Be courageous. Absolutely. Be curious. That would be the advice for sure.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you, Shawn. So for our listeners who want to learn more about these programs or you, where can they find you?
If they'd like to know more about the Zion Institute, our website is thezioninstitute.org. If they'd like to learn more about the consulting or have some consulting and coaching support, they can go to whisperconsulting.com. That's WISPHER consulting.com. And then they can also find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn as Shawn M. Pearson. I have Shawn M. Pearson Journey Coach as well for the podcast.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Shawn, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story, your journey, your insights into success and impact here in Phoenix. Thank you.
Tim, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.